Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm here with Oscar Vance as a guest, and I'm Jay Bagley with the Drone Skylark Motion Incorporated. So, Oscar, could you tell us a little more about yourself?
Okay, Jay, it is so good to see you again. And I know I worked with you once before because you're with that drone program with the Vance Community Center. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I've been with the Vance Center since 2012. We started that organization. It's called the Vance Center. And basically, I started in the district attorney's office back in 1964. That's quite a long time. That was pre-Martin Luther King days.
You're quite a young man.
Yes. My grandkids referred to me as an old man with wisdom. And they were encouraging me, by the way, to do the podcast, and they wanted me to call it Rant with Oscar Vance. Old man Oscar Vance. And I think you corrected me when I told you about that. You said, why don't you just call it Rant with Oscar Vance, or Rant with Wisdom of Oscar Vance?
The wisdom of Oscar Vance.
That sounds a little bit better to me. Kind of like cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yes. But anyway, I've been involved with the district attorney's office, like I said, back in 1964, and it was very interesting how that happened. And as I stated before, that was pre-Martin Luther King days. And when I say that, I'm saying that was during the period of time that we had the civil rights marches in order to get us better jobs and things of that nature.
So what drew you into the leadership role that you're in?
The leadership role that I got into was as a result of actually my father, who was named Oscar Palmer Vance Sr. And he was an individual, a very unique individual, and he was a postman in Philadelphia, down in 17th and York. And what better education could you get from a man that was down in 17th and York in North Philadelphia back when he was born in 1914? So he saw a lot, and he was able to share all those things with me. And I got into this leadership role as a result of my father, who started me off at the age of 13. 13 years old. I did not even have working papers. Back then you had to have working papers to get a job. And I'll never forget, my father came into the living room and he said to me, shaking his finger, he said, I think it's time that we get you a job. I was 13, and it happened right at my home in the living room. And I thought to myself, I said, my father's telling me to get a job. I said, I'm doing all the neighbors, cutting their grass, running errands for them, doing all the work around the house as far as cutting the grass there also, shoveling the snow that needed to be shoveled during that period of time, and all the leadership roles that you would take as a young person during that period of time. And that's where I first began my leadership role.
So that's the leadership role then. What do you think about, what does this leadership role play with the youth of today?
Well, with the youth of today, like I opened today in terms of telling you, in terms of wisdom, the wisdom that I gathered from my father, and then that wisdom gravitated on to other people that helped me as mentors. And one of my mentors was my pastor of the Salem Baptist Church of Jenkintown. And his name was Robert Johnson Smith. And he was able to bring out the best in me as far as where I was going during that period of time, and that was right after I got out of the United States Marine Corps. And that was the leadership role that he took as a mentor to tell me, because I was interested in getting into law enforcement at the time. And I had just finished the examination up at the Abington Police Department because I wanted to be a patrolman. And the salary looked pretty good to me at that time. It was $5,700 to start.
Big time.
And I took the examination. And you got to remember now, like I said, this is 1964, and I'm fresh out of the United States Marine Corps. I was a Sergeant E5 in the United States Marine Corps when I was in there. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later as far as leadership roles. But in terms of that, that led me to go on to challenge the Abington Police Department to get onto their police department. They hired the first 3 out of 40 of us, and I was number 5 out of the 40 that took the examination. And that was my first start. And I guess you would call that a real eye-opener. And what happened after that? I had Robert Johnson Smith tell me, he said, Oscar, I want you to go up to Montgomery County. I want you to apply for a position up there. I said, what kind of position is that? He said, I want you to apply for that detective position up at Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. And I thought about it. I said, well, Pastor, I'm already ready to go on Abington Police Department. I'm on their civil service list. I'm number 5 on there, and they just hired 3, and I'm still on the list. So then, as it progressed, he said, listen, I want to go up there and talk to an individual by the name of Herb Nelson. He said, Herb Nelson is a guy who's a lawyer up there in Montgomery County. So as it happened, I listened to my pastor, and I went up and I talked to this old gentleman who was a very, very light-complected African-American lawyer, and his name was Herb Nelson. And he was the first assistant district attorney in 1961. Now you have to remember now, we're talking pre-Martin Luther King days. Now here's a man that went to law school back in 1938.
Very impressive.
So I talked to Mr. Nelson, and he said, listen, give me your background. So I went to the same background I told you a little bit about here, in terms of growing up in Abington Township and going to the high school in 1959, graduated from there, and then I went into the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old. Well, 17 years old, going into the Marine Corps is like, that's fresh meat.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot.
So, what kind of community impact and vision did you get from that experience?
From that experience, it was a great experience from the standpoint of all the things that I had to go through to get that far. And there were a lot of things that happened to me during that period of time. It was placed down in South Carolina called Parris Island, and I'm not talking about Paris. I'm talking about the place where they train the United States Marine Corps individuals when they first go in. And they have down there known as a drill instructor. And that drill instructor, he almost screamed almost as loud as my father, but not maybe as quite as loud. He didn't frighten me as much as my father did. But anyway, as a result of that, that put the fear into me as far as leadership was concerned. And I was able to rise in the Marine Corps all the way up to the position of Sergeant E5.
Oh, that was good.
Okay, and as a result of that, when I talked to Mr. Nelson, he told me, he says, listen, I think you're the young man we're looking for. And I said to myself, what's he talking about? He said, I want you to go over and talk to the district attorney of Montgomery County, which was at that time one of the richest counties in the state of Pennsylvania. And he sent me over there, and I went over and talked to that gentleman who was a district attorney, and he says, listen, I think you're the guy that we're looking for. He told me the same thing that Herb Nelson told me.
Excellent.
And they hired me as, I was supposed to be hired as a detective, but they hired me. I came up there the first day, and that was in 1964, February 2nd to be exact. And he told me, he says, listen, we talked to the commissioners and they decided that we're going to hire you as an investigator rather than a detective. And my wheels were turning in my head, and I'm wondering, well, what is he talking about? He said, we're going to hire you as an investigator, and the salary is going to be $4,500 a year.
That makes you go,
Face the mic.
So what happened then?
My mind actually did go, but it came to the point where I thought to myself when he was talking, I said, you know what? This isn't any different than what I experienced when I was a kid at 13. No different than when I was in the Marine Corps when I was 17. And I said, now I'm 22 years old, and I said, I'm still being confronted with the same type of thing here. But I was number 5 on the civil service list down in Abington, and I thought to myself, if I don't like it here, I can always go back to Abington and go into that position that's going to give me $5,700 a year instead of $4,500 a year where I was doing in the district attorney's office. And the DA says to me, he says, you are interested in that position, are you? And after I reconciled with myself in my mind, I said, you know what? Yes, sir, I'm interested in that position.
All right.
And that's happened.
So that's a wonderful childhood experience. So my question is, we have and always will have problems with youth.
Yes.
So what is your vision for the youth of Norristown with your experience?
Well, after all that I endured and all those different things that happened to me over those years, they need mentorship into what I refer to as excellence. And when I say excellence, I'm talking about you have to be better, 10 times better, as I was taught by my father. I was taught that the same thing in the Marine Corps and so forth. You gotta be 10 times better than other individuals who are competing, perhaps maybe for the same type of job or whatever that I'm required to do.
Very true.
And that's leadership.
Yes.
That's where I first learned my leadership abilities.
So what is your dream project that you want to perform in the Norristown community?
Okay, the thing that I wanted to do was I had a thing that I wanted to do from the standpoint of leadership. And I decided at that particular time that I wanted to start a organization with a mission. And I figured, well, you know what? How are you going to do this? And I met some individuals, and one of the individuals that I did meet during that period of time, this was 2012 that I started this organization that was called Vance Community Partners, Inc., which is now the Vance Center. And I had thought in my mind at that time, it was not just a dream, but it was something that I wanted to do after I finished my career with the law enforcement, after being in law enforcement for all the way up until 2012. At that time, I had something like 48 years to be exact. I had 48 years of leadership abilities and so forth. And I wanted to pass that on to other kids and adults also in that area. So that's where I decided I wanted to do that. And I started a mission statement to help and mentor youth and adults.
Oh, that's excellent. So I got another question. Who's a leader that you admire?
The very first person that I really admired that was public, Jackie Robinson. He was my idol. And I looked at Jackie Robinson when I was about 9 years old. My father took me down to Shy Park. And that was down at I think it's down at 20 or 17th and Lehigh down there. And that was it was near his route, his mail route. And he knew all of the players down there and all the teams and everything because everybody loved the mailman. And when he was down there, we went to the baseball games. And I could see Jackie Robinson run around those bases, and I saw him hit those balls, and he was just my idol during that period of time. And I just thought how great it was to see a black baseball player on the field at 9 years old to witness that. And he was my idol.
Well, that's awesome. And it produced a very quality and positive person, an accomplished person. So, is there anything else you'd like to speak on before we close this
Yeah,
meeting?
as time went on, like I said, I decided that I wanted to get involved with the community. So I was on many boards. One of the boards that I was on was the Abington Memorial Hospital, which is now Abington Jefferson or Jefferson Abington Hospital. And that very same hospital, I was on that board since 1979, and I just won emeritus on that board. And I met many people there, influential people who were pillars of the community and so forth, which gave me insight even more so in terms of how to move ahead and to help other young people to accomplish the things that I accomplished also.
So thank you very much. That's Oscar Vance, the retired police chief of Norristown, talking about leadership and the quality of life that leadership brought to him. So we'd like to thank you, and we're looking forward to doing this again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jay Bagley. And let's hope that you and I are able to work on many other platforms and cases and projects and things to help the children here in Norristown, and not only the children, but the adults too.
So amen to that. We'd like to thank you all.
Okay.
Yay! Amen.